gentlemen, welcome to a new edition of the Behind the Curtin podcast on the Nittany Sports Now Network. My name is Jarrod Prugar, and I'm joined by my good friend and co-host, the mayor, Paul Murphy, who is just kind of in the dark this week. And that's really kind of, we've got a nice little Godfather type thing going on, which is very fitting, given our hometown, well, I guess my hometown, but his former city of residence, Altoona, and their desire to be in the news. So we got the Godfather of Penn State athletics here, the mayor.
Good evening, Jarrod. Welcome from record-setting 83-degree Phoenix, Arizona.
I'm glad you mentioned the weather, not because I think you're braggadocious, but the weather is going to be a factor on Saturday. Believe it or not, Penn State's playing a home game. Today, I think, marked the 4-year anniversary of the latest game played at Beaver Stadium, matching, I believe, Illinois in 2020 during the COVID year, which was a bizarre year. And I think people tend to forget about how bad Penn State was during that time. But it's a much different time right now. Penn State's preparing for the playoff. They face SMU and the Mustangs at Beaver Stadium Saturday afternoon for a noon kickoff, which I think is both good and bad. It's good because it gets it out of the way. You don't have to wait. But it's bad because it robs everybody of the atmosphere of Beaver Stadium at night. And I think there's something special about that. I've seen it as a fan. I've seen it as somebody in the media. But the biggest thing that's going to be a factor this time of year is the weather. And that is it's not going to be snowing. It's just going to be cold and probably windy. And that matters for a team coming from the heart of Texas.
Yeah, that checking as you were saying about the weather forecast, it looked like possible wind gusts up to 20, 25 miles an hour at certain times during the game. And as you said, like robbing them of the whole whiteout experience. And everybody would agree with that, except for Joel Klatt, who's
you can do it at noon. Yeah, and honestly, like whiteouts at noon are awesome. Whiteouts anytime are awesome, and anytime we don't have to hear him on TV is even better.
Yeah, I mean, no Gus Johnson, no Joel Klatt for this one, and that's great. So yeah, you do mention the weather. It's kind of funny leading up to this week when you go back and peruse the message boards, X, formerly known as Twitter, and we played in the 39-degree game here a few weeks ago. And it is kind of funny. I mean, it does get cold in Texas during the wintertime and stuff, but not what we're going to see here. I think the wind chill temperatures are supposed to be possibly in the 20s. I think low 20s or high teens, and I think. I mean, as much as we say it likes to benefit Penn State hasn't really played in anything that cold either. Though most of these guys are used to that type of weather. But yeah, the whiteout, and I want to touch on that a little bit too, Jarrod. We were talking about the whiteout and the 107,000 fans, and now we're seeing, all kinds of crazy stuff going on right now with ticket sales and how they didn't allow all the students to get tickets because I thought they could sell them to others and so on and so forth. And that's not happening. And, of course you get, people now, I thought Penn State sold out every game. I thought they get 100,000 no matter what. Well, let's not forget that the student allotment is 21,000. So 20% roughly of your fan base is your students. So for those who haven't, really been paying attention or just, and I don't mean this in a demeaning way, a casual Penn State fan where they watch them on Saturday, they don't really keep track of everything. So here we are. We're here with all the students who are going on Christmas break. The allotments weren't exactly given out correctly. The weather, and you have the possibility of playing 4 games. So people who aren't from the area are most likely trying to look. I mean, you take myself, for example. I already have my Fiesta Bowl tickets for New Year's Eve for the Boise State game. So I chose that game. If they make it to the finals, that's a decision I have to make then. But when you look at flying all across the country and games from week to week, and you don't know where you're going to be or if you're going to be, So now all of a sudden you got to make all these last minute plans for flights and hotels and the whole hotel gouging issue going up there in State College right now is absolutely insane.
Well, the
Uh,
problem is graduation. Graduation being there at the same time is an issue.
yeah, and the Penn State basketball game going on at the same time. And
That's
I
in
know.
Drexel. That's going to be at Drexel though, or
Oh, that's not
that's going to be
Drexel.
in
That's right.
Philly.
That's right. I'm
But
sorry.
yes, either way, I mean, there's just so much going on in State College, but that's the problem, right? Like it's a saturated market now because you have 7 Saturdays a week that are dedicated, or a season, I guess I should say, that are dedicated to Penn State football at Beaver Stadium. It's easier to get to those in August, September, October, and November than it is the week of Christmas. Because guess what? I mean, typically people are going to travel up to Penn State on a Friday, stay overnight or have an RV or whatever, stay in Altoona and then go the rest of the way on Friday. And it's a noon kick. Penn State and Beaver Stadium and University Park is not an easy place to get to from any of the major metropolitan areas. Harrisburg is probably the easiest, and that's where they have the media hotel set up at, for the college football playoff, media guys. They're staying in, or the media hotel was in, was a Marriott in Harrisburg. That's still an hour and 15 minutes away. So I mean, getting to State College is not easy by any means, and for it to be a noon kick, I mean, that makes it difficult because now you're leaving Pittsburgh at, say, 7 o'clock, if that, to get there at 10, 6 o'clock to get there at 9, and that's if you don't hit traffic.
Hmm.
And you're right. I mean, for me personally, we kind of fund our own travel with NSN, um, because that's just kind of where we're at as a site. So I mean, it's trying to pick and choose now which games you're going to go to. I am fortunate; I've already been to the Fiesta Bowl. I have a great place to stay if I could get out there. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. But it's getting out there that's the hard part. It's not a drivable trip, really. But it's you have to fly, and flights at this time of year, you're flying around the holidays, and that's just an incredibly difficult thing to try to balance. Knowing that the next game that Penn State would play after that, and this is all hypothetical if they win, right? If they beat SMU, is potentially Miami, or I think it would be Miami in the Orange Bowl.
That's
So I
correct.
mean,
Yeah.
that's not a bad trip. But at the same time, you still are probably going to fly rather than drive. And the date is the middle of the damn week. And I think it's on a Thursday or a Friday. And I think that's bullshit too. Um, and that's something that the college football playoff and the NCAA really need to talk to the NFL about, and so that they can get games on Saturdays again in that era, even if it means the NFL gets the 1 o'clock time slot on Saturday. Run a game or two, then run a game, and then the football playoff can be at 4 and 8 during that. That would be my best idea for that to make it work, because the Thursday and Friday thing sucks. It's bad enough the national title game's on a Monday. I think that's complete and total BS too. I'd much rather be on a Saturday. You play Saturdays for a reason. Play it on Saturday. Like, it makes it easier, 10 times easier, because I think what people are failing to realize is a lot of people in the media anymore have multiple sources of income, multiple jobs, because being a journalist is not something that is paying you a ton of money unless you're at a bigger outlet like the Post, New York Post, the Post Gazette in Pittsburgh, or maybe even the Philadelphia Inquirer. But it's just one of those things where now people are having to pick and choose which game to go to. Like, you're not going to fly up to Penn State and then fly back to Arizona, and there are a lot of people that are like that. It's just one of those kind of deals, and it's right around Christmas time. You didn't really know this was going to happen until the end of November, or I'm sorry, no, first week of December. So I mean, it's just logistically a nightmare, and that's the biggest problem with it all.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I was looking at, Jarrod, when they announced the sites and everything, and then trying to look at the magnitude of how it plays out. Um, and it's just like you've already discussed, and as I mentioned here earlier, is that you got to kind of pick and choose. And even talking to Ryan, I asked him if he was going to the game on Saturday since he's 35 minutes away. As you know, my other son Sean went to the Big Ten championship game, and if they win on Saturday, I'll be able to go to the festival. Like I said, I already have my tickets for the game and a parking pass, and I already have. If you recall, last time you came here, when they were here, we had that tailgate set up,
Mhm.
and I've already talked to my buddy, and he's like, "Oh yeah, we'll definitely do another tailgate." So that's great. But then I think Ryan is of the mindset that maybe if they make it to the championship game, I'll save my money and stuff for that. But you can go up to Penn State right now and get tickets for $65 to get in the game. You're gonna pay $100 for parking, which I saw. Out here, it was like opposite. Tickets cost me like 225 each here for the Fiesta Bowl, and parking was only like $45. So you definitely have to make your arrangements and do things, and it's always nice if you have people in the vicinity. I do see various people that I know and follow and talk to, like, oh yeah, my buddy lives in just outside of Atlanta, I have a place to stay if I go, and so on and so forth. But like you said, it's the travel, and you're trying to get a flight around the holidays 7 days before the game. It's insane. Like, you're going to pay as much as I'd probably paying to go to the Scotland next year when we fly out in May. So
Mhm.
it's something to be revisited, and as you said, and one thing you miss is like the national championship game is January 20th, which is the presidential inauguration. Like,
Yeah.
who who like, come on, like, I don't know, it's a little crazy with some of these dates adding up, but it's the first year. As we've already seen with the selection show, there are some kinks to iron out moving forward, and hopefully this is one of them.
Right, and that's I think it's so tough because like you try to plan, right? And I will be honest with you, um it's so costly. Unless you're getting help from something, it's just really tough because when you look at the types of costs, and listen, I'm fortunate because like for me, I have another job. The problem is it's the holidays, right? Like mortgages are due, car payments are due, things are due, and it's around the first of the month, and it's not fun by any means. Looking at, actually looking at flights to Miami. So say they make it past Boise State and play in the Orange Bowl, you could do a quick flight from Pittsburgh to Miami, um, and you do a want to get away for $159, which is
Hmm,
not bad. That is a
sure.
positive. But it's just one of those situations where then are you going down and are you going to do that um, for
Atlanta.
the national title game?
Yeah.
In Atlanta, and it's just kind of those deals where what are you doing? Like, how do you fix this? And there's no great way to go about it, in my opinion, because I think it's tough. And listen, the media industry, the paper industry, especially, they're going to be wearing um, some serious costs here. They're going to be having to pick and choose whether they cover these big games, and every game from here on out is a different first for Penn State football in their history. This is the first round game. This is the first advanced playoff, 12-team playoff in Penn
Mhm.
State history. And also this is the last Penn State game at Beaver Stadium in its current form. The entire west side, I think it's the west side, of the stadium, the press box side of the stadium is going to be bulldozed after the game. So I mean, there's just so many things that you know are are coming up that you're making a lot of people having to make some very very difficult decisions. And the way that they fall, it kind of sucks. Like for me, I have my personal days at school, and I have 2 personal days left. So I have to kind of I have to pick and choose, you know, what is important? Is it the semifinal and the Orange Bowl? Say again, these are all hypotheticals if they get there, but I think it kind of relates to this. It's and then you don't know until the next day, right? Or until Sunday the first or Wednesday the first or whatever. It's just a really weird kind of fluky schedule. Obviously, the New Year's Six bowl games that makes sense, whatever. But still, I mean, you're just kind of flying by the seat of your pants, which is not a great way to travel by any means.
Yeah, I agree. It's not a simple solution right now either.
No, and I think that's the hardest part for me. Um, but it does look like trips to Miami are pretty cheap, so that could be fun. Maybe spend a week in Miami. Welcome to Miami.
No, no,
Oh yeah,
no,
yeah.
no,
It's not
no.
like
You
it's the U
singing,
anymore.
you singing. Stop.
Oh, you've been around me. Come
Come
on,
on, man.
you knew I used to hit the karaoke scene up pretty hard when I was younger. Then my voice dropped, and lo and behold, here we are. Now I just get paid to speak for a living. So I mean, it's been a wild ride, right? But using Pittsburgh, let's use Pittsburgh as an example here. To fly out the day of the game, um, and fly back the day after the game, it's roughly about $303, which actually isn't bad at all, to be perfectly honest with you. So I mean that's a really good thing as far as that goes. But Penn State's got to get there. And that's the other thing too. If they don't get there and you have these problems, you're kind of shit out of luck.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's why you got to plan ahead. So it was just kind of, I'm fortunate. I'm 25 minutes away from the Fiesta Bowl, so that's not a problem for me. But like you said, and Jared, it's been, I just graduated high school the last time Penn State made the national championship game. We were talking 38 years ago, and this is, kind of the discussion we were just having with Heidi and I. And we're just like, I almost feel like I need to go because
Right.
when this happened in '86, way before you guys were even a thought in somebody's brain, um, '82 and '86, we got 2 national championships in 4 years. Like, this is great. I get older, get a job, I'll be able to go. And it has not happened. So I don't really want to miss the opportunity to do this. It would be cool if one or both of my kids or my boys and could go. But yeah, it's just you gotta pick and choose. And if it was up to me, I would wait until the national championship game to make that decision. And it's going to be an expensive one at that, because I've always said once the Browns make a Super Bowl, I'm definitely going to go. I don't even know. Maybe my grandkids can go to the Browns when they make the Super Bowl some year. I don't know. It ain't going to be me.
Good luck. But we're going to talk a little bit more about the actual football aspect of Saturday afternoon when we come back for the second segment of the Behind the Curtain podcast on the Nittany Sports Now Network. Welcome back to the second segment of the Behind the Curtain podcast on the Nittany Sports Now Network. He is the mayor of the darkness, and I am Jarrod. And we talked a lot about the logistics of what goes into Saturday. Obviously, it's a Penn State home game, but there's going to be a CFP flavor. SMU is going to get their hype video. Maybe that means one less hype video for Penn State, who often plays about 3 or 4 or 5, who keeps counting. And the band's going to be there for SMU, which will be nice as well. But the football aspect on the field, Penn State's going to look a little different on offense, and I think it's going to be a positive and a negative. I think it's a very weird situation for them to be in with Bo Prabula transferring or entering the portal, and the timeliness of that sucks for everybody involved. I don't think that he really wanted to go. But at the end of the day, you have to do what's best for you. However, that impacts the Penn State offense in a way that now they can't run the Prabula package in its original form. But maybe now that won't interrupt momentum moving forward for the Penn State offense either, which is a net positive. But now their backup is Ethan Grunkemeyer, and he has 0 game reps whatsoever. And the last time anybody that played at Penn State had 0 game reps, that happened at Iowa, and it was a shit situation for all involved. Pun certainly intended.
Well, yeah, that's the whole and this is Jarrod, and as we've kind of have seen this week and since the portal opened up, the NCAA definitely has to they've got to get out in front of this. It's just like they said, this is like opening it up, in the NFL playoffs and having free agency and the second week of the playoffs into the Super Bowl. And it's not good for anybody. And I've seen some of the comments and stuff. You got a lot of guys out there chasing bags. I mean, there's no question about it. You got guys out there chasing bags. That is not the situation with Bo Prabula. And as you and I were texting the other night right after the news broke, and as we saw, and as anybody that follows this whole thing closely then that just tells me that Drew Allar is coming back next year. So Bo has done his time. He's wants to start. He can start. He's got the capability, if he gets into the right program, and to do so. And his teammates are all 110% behind him. I mean, and Franklin, I thought, did an absolutely bang up job of bringing this to everybody's attention the other day and discussing it. So the element that you're speaking of there with Bo coming in, and something that I had witnessed, even when I was literally at the Purdue game, was like, oh, you're up like 44-7 or 42-7. Get Grunkemeyer in the fourth quarter. Get the kids some reps, if anything, because you would be in a situation if something happened to Prabula and he got in a game and got hurt. Then you still got a quarterback with no reps. And, he had 3 different opportunities of games. We know that James Franklin has not been the best at that. We have seen that over the years. I think that is one of the things he does not do well. I think he was trying to keep Bo happy. So here we are coming into the SMU game, and you have a situation, as you said, is you don't have a backup quarterback. We got a quarterback that's a freshman who has no game reps whatsoever. And so what do? Like, Allar's going to have to take it. He's going to have to go from start to finish, because you don't want to put Grunkemeyer in a situation that he could get hurt. Now what do? Bring in Jack Lambert? And for all you Steeler fans, no, not that Jack Lambert. So, I mean,
I thought you were going to go a completely different way with that third string quarterback, and I'm glad you didn't.
Go ahead, enlighten me.
Oh no, I think you'll know 100%. There it is.
Never mind.
The brain popped off for the mayor, huh?
Yeah. That probably transferred.
I'm proud of you for showing that restraint. But you're right. Like, you're so right, because you should. I mean, to get some of those reps is good. I mean, obviously you want to keep Bo happy, but also maybe you're knowing that he's going into the portal, and you want to get him some quality reps. And I think Franklin has done a really good job of taking care of his guys. Again, the guys that leave, you kind of expect them to. And Drew Allar is staying, and Prabula, I think he deserves a starting spot, wherever that might be. And for Penn State's sake, I think they hope that it's not in the Big Ten. But right, and he just kind of has to do it. But now the offense is going to look a little different, which is okay, I think, in my opinion. If they play the way that they did against Oregon, that running game was superb. This is something that they've never really – the SMU defense has not really faced anything quite like the Penn State offense, outside of maybe a Clemson, and BYU was pretty good when they played them. But I mean, it's a challenge to keep contain of Tyler Warren, who's one of the best players, if not the best tight end in the country. And then Aller's playing some really good football as well. And the two-headed running backs, you know, are a really good feature for the offense too. So I mean, there's just so much that is going to be thrown at SMU on both sides of the football. Defensively for Penn State, Abdul Carter is playing some really good football right now. He's going to be a terror wherever he lines up, and that's never good for an opposing offensive line.
Yeah, and as you know, Abdul Carter has made some comments here since the awards came out here last week, and he felt that he was slighted a little bit and stuff. And so, I mean, if you got to give him some more motivation to do what he's going to do. But if I'm SMU, I just follow the Oregon's game plan, where I just grab him around the neck, I grab him around the waist, and if he doesn't get a call, then no harm, no foul. But yeah, I mean, SMU, I mean, they do have a good rushing attack. Jennings is a very capable quarterback, and he can run, and if he gets outside the pocket and escapes, he can cause problems. His downside is when he tends to make the mistakes at the worst possible time for SMU. So, I understand that SMU has not played anybody. I mean, they came back and beat Clemson in the game and everything. So they're a little bit tested in that. But the ACC is just an absolute garbage conference. Some of the better teams we saw this year coming up out of the ashes were SMU, and Boston College actually was having a good season, and Miami was Miami, Clemson, and then you got the has-beens or the wannabes like Pitt, Louisville, teams like that. Sorry, not Louisville. Yes. So I think that the element that doesn't benefit SMU is exactly what you said. They don't have to prepare for a Bo Prabula now. It's a straight Drew Allar type game. So that hurts Penn State a little bit, that they don't have that element now. But I mean, the 8.5 point spread, I think it's going to be a closer game than than what some people are expecting. I think Penn State could win by 10. I think Penn State could win by 3 or 4. With what? So that's going to be an interesting game.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I think that it's a toss-up. I think the benefit for Penn State is that it happens in the cold. It happens at home, which is a really good situation for them. And then, on the flip side, it's just kind of making sure that you take care of business. I think Penn State is the better team on paper. Again, I don't think that they've been challenged in a lot of different ways, and I think that's something that is a factor for SMU. And believe me, I thought SMU had a very good chance to win the ACC. And I think it's just one of those situations where now, can they match up against Penn State? And is that going to be a situation that's beneficial for everybody? But again, it's just kind of one of those deals. Can they figure it out, and can they get the job done? And for Penn State, they just got to come out and handle their business offensively, defensively, and on special teams. And if they are able to do that, I think they win. I have it being 34-17, and we're going to talk about that here in the third segment. But again, this is Penn State's game to lose. But if they do lose, then I think there's going to be some heat fired up in Happy Valley.
I agree, Jarrod. I mean, I think you look at the 4 games that are going this week, and I think 3 of these games, I'm pretty sure, if you just had to look at it on paper, like you would know who you feel is going to win the game. And one's a toss-up. But Penn State, this is all we've been listening to and hearing is like, oh, wow, 3 of the last 5 years, Penn State would have been in the playoffs if they went to 12 teams, or 4 of the last 5. I forget which it was. 3 of the 4, I think. And now here we are. You know, you're in, and coincidentally enough, the year that they do go to 12, Penn State was actually 3rd in the country, where they would have they would have already been in the semifinals. So it's just kind of poetic justice there. So yeah, this is a time for Penn State. Now you've wanted this, you've wanted it bad. You got yourself a home game, and let's face it, they got almost an easier path than the team that won the Big Ten in Oregon with
Right.
that. So and this is what this is always a discussion for another time. But again, you got to look at the situation and figure out, how does a team that didn't win their conference championship end up with a somewhat easier path to get to the semifinals or the finals than a team that's a number 1 team in the country and undefeated? Like, so there's this,
Right.
like I said, there are things that they got to do, and it's baby steps. You got to look at lessons learned and approach things, and we're going to see how they do this moving forward next year.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting to kind of see how it all plays out. But for now, we're going to take a quick break and get back into the third and final segment of the Behind the Curtain podcast when we come back from this break. Third and final segment of the Behind the Curtain podcast. Sorry, I almost forgot what show I'm on. He is the mayor. He is in the pit of darkness in Arizona because it's too expensive to really do much of anything out there, especially fly. And we were over break. I think this is funny, going back to the first segment. If you were listening, we talked about the logistics. It would be cheaper for me to fly out of Pittsburgh to and from Miami, to and from Atlanta. To say, again, these are all hypotheticals for Penn State. If they were to make it to the national title game, then it would be for me to fly to Arizona for the Fiesta Bowl, which is crazy to me. But that's also based on the timeliness of everything and all of that. And I remember flying out to LA for the Rose Bowl and to the Fiesta Bowl just a few years ago, where I stayed with the mayor. And those are things that is some of these not necessarily lesser sites, because I think they all do work. It's picking and choosing your travel battles, and that's not always fun. And fortunately for Penn State, they didn't get the Friday game for the college football playoff, because if they got the game on Friday night, I think that ends up being a completely logistical nightmare in Happy Valley.
Yep, it's going to be. I mean, trying to get to a state college, and we've talked about this, and in the middle of nowhere, but in the middle of winter is a whole other beast. Fortunately for those traveling, there's not too much any bad weather coming, any snowstorms, anything like that. But yeah, out here, Jarrod, as you can see, and as you know, when you were out here for the Fiesta Bowl, we actually had Shaka Tony's family came to our tailgate. And I know, talking to them, that was one of the stress points, was how expensive flights were to Phoenix. And and it's New Year's Eve. It's it's Phoenix. It's not cheap out here. Nothing's cheap out here. It's culture shock if you're coming from Altoona at the prices you see out here for stuff and everything. And just like when I go back home, it's culture shock, because I'm like, oh, I can get 3 of these for what I pay for one of these back here. So. But yeah, it is what it is. I'm hoping Penn State can take care of business this Saturday, and and then I don't have to look like a fool for getting our tickets too soon and having to go on and sell them. But
if I were in your shoes, I would still go see Boise State.
I'm good.
I actually did have, I think, before we get to the other games that we want to talk about, I did have a kid come up to me today during the school day as I was walking the halls, and he said, "Man, Ashton Genty got robbed." So it's the word is out that I'm a Boise State fan in the school, and I think that's the funniest thing. I don't know if they listen to the podcast or not, but I think that's the absolute funniest thing is that this dude got robbed, and I think that was a unique moment for me. But speaking of that Friday game, your affectionately named South Bend Community College takes on a basketball school in the Hoosiers.
I just don't have much to say about this game because I just don't think Indiana is that good. But we
I'm in the
showed
same boat.
how they played when they did play somebody with a pulse. I mean, they avoided everybody this year but Ohio State, and we saw how that went. So unfortunately for me, I have to, I think Notre Dame, South Bend Community College at Mishawaka will win this going away. I'm saying 34-16 Notre Dame.
I think it's a blowout too. I just don't think that Indiana has it. Now they've had some time to prepare, and I love the confidence of Kurt Signetti, and I think I love that aspect of it. But at the same time, I think that Notre Dame is just too good for them. That'd put them in the Sugar Bowl against Georgia with a win. For Penn State, I like Penn State winning 34-17. Again, I don't think SMU's been challenged by this type of team before, at least this year. Rhett Lashley has done a great job in Dallas. They for the most part of the season have been the team in Dallas to pay attention to, not the team from Arlington with the stars on their helmets. Though I did like Micah Parsons saying that he was willing to take some less money to surround himself with some good talent. They're just still hanging around the chicken coop for the playoffs, which is ultimately frustrating because we all know that's probably not going to happen. What are your thoughts on the game at noon in Beaver Stadium?
I got Penn State winning this one, 30-20 is what I see here. I see a 30-20, so pretty, maybe not as big of a gap as you see. I think when this game gets into midway through the third quarter into the fourth, especially with the Prugar absence, I think what you're going to see is I think you're going to see Penn State start to pound the rock. I think you're going to see them shorten the game. There's no style points now. It's just win or go home. So I think that they are going to wear down the SMU defensive line with Allen and Singleton, and even use Corey back there for a little bit too. He's shown to be a different type of runner than both of those. So beat him up, wear him down, and then hit him with a lightning strike when you bring him into the game. So I got 30-20 Penn State.
Yeah, I think Penn State does win. That takes us to Austin, Texas, Clemson versus Texas. I got the Horns. I don't the Longhorns. I think they've got too much going on for Clemson. Though I am interested to see how they handle Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning, but again, I do think that they're going to be too much for the Tigers.
What do you got for a score?
Oh, man, I think Texas – see, I thought Texas was going to score a lot of points against Georgia, and then that was a slap fight points-wise. I think it's going to be about 38 to 24.
Okay. I got Texas in this too. I don't think that Clemson has the firepower to withstand Texas in this game. I'm gonna go with Texas here. I'm gonna go Texas 34, Clemson 20 in that game, and then Texas will earn themselves a date with none other than the Arizona State Sun Devils in the Cotton Bowl in Dallas. So that has been a lot of talk and going on here in the Valley with ASU, and Scatterboo coming in, I believe, fifth in the Heisman Trophy. They're playing the disrespect card.
They have a chip on their shoulder.
Yeah, which is fine. I think ASU is going to find out real quick when you go up with to a team like Texas. Um, yeah, this isn't the Big 12 anymore, and everything. But hey, that's why you play the game.
Absolutely, and that takes us to Tennessee and Ohio State. I think that's a big toss-up. On paper, Ohio State, I think, is the better team. I think a lot of people have Ohio State making it to the national title game. And if Ryan Day wasn't their coach, I think that's a very big possibility. I'm just very interested to see how engaged this team is. They lost their Super Bowl. They lost to Michigan. Can they respond and rebound and go on a run here? Because I think, for them, if I'm Ryan Day, obviously you want to get past Tennessee because that sets you up for the Rose Bowl, and it sets you up for a rematch against Oregon, who essentially ruined your chances at Big Ten championship. Well, I mean, Michigan did that, but they were a play away from beating Oregon earlier in the season.
So who you got here? Ohio State?
Oh man, this to me is a toss-up. I'm very interested to see. All week on Twitter, you've seen that the volunteer fans have soaked up all the secondary market tickets, and I don't know that those are accurate numbers, but I think Ohio State's going to win. It's going to be close, like a 31-28 type deal, but I do think that Ohio State ends up getting their rematch and setting themselves up for a potential match against Oregon.
Mm-hmm. And I've been kind of looking at this too, from the aspect of which Ryan Day is going to show up here, and I'm not 100% sure, where I don't know. I just I would like to think Ohio State's going to win this game, so it's going to be a close game, but I'm going to go with I'm going to go 24-21. And I think you're going to have to go with Tennessee here.
Well, there's the one game we disagree on. We'll have to see kind of how that goes. But listen, this is newfound territory, and I think that's what makes this all special. It'll be very interesting to kind of see how things go from here. But college football is here. The 12-team playoff kicks off Friday night in South Bend with the team from not South Bend Community College, but in fact Notre Dame. Rudy was indeed offside.
I got you saying it now.
Listen, I can't say anything positive about Notre Dame. I did hope that Rudy pulled his hamstring. So that's kind of where I'm at. We are, made of the same cloth, if you will.
So
any parting shots before we head into the end of this segment here?
I got my curtain call set up tonight. I would just like to, I've had some folks reaching out asking, a podcast, especially last week, as we ran into some scheduling conflicts and stuff with everything. So fortunately, we had a week off in between the games. But I've had some people reaching out. Where's our podcast? And my cousin, he listens to it on his drive to work and in Texas and stuff. So it's kind of cool to see some of these people, asking about it and everything. And so as we move into the Christmas season here, I just want to, wish everybody and our listeners and everybody that chimes in and, a blessed Christmas, a Merry Christmas, and a great New Year. And hopefully for us Penn State fans, that Christmas starts off a little early this Saturday. If not, it's a time for reflection and giving and stuff like that. And as you get older and stuff, it's this is stuff that we love to do, and your mindset changes with things and stuff. And it's always nice to see in organizations like my company, we did 2 different toy drives and things like that. And it's just really nice to see that because there's so many kids that are not that fortunate. And I know I'm going away from the normal theme of our podcast here, but it's really nice to see when people do step up for people and for kids that are less fortunate, especially in this day and age and everything. So I would also like to, give a big thank you to those who help make that happen. So yeah, Merry Christmas, everybody, and hopefully we get things off on the right foot.
Yeah, I know. We always seem to run into these scheduling issues because you and I might be the busiest people in the world between different things we've going on for work and play and all that fun stuff. And it's not always easy to kind of orchestrate times to do this. You're 2 hours behind me. I'm 2 hours ahead of you. It's always an interesting dynamic when we're trying to schedule this. You were mad at me earlier for doing this during the Penn State game for volleyball, and I said I don't care about volleyball.
I'm not missing anything right now because they're getting their doors blown in.
So you're welcome for that. But we do appreciate everybody that tunes in, watches us, whether it's on YouTube. The good news or bad news is you won't get to see Murph's face. The mayor's blacked out. You will get to see mine. So, yeah, not sure if that's good or bad news on the YouTube. And if you're listening to us wherever you listen to your podcast, you do get to hear our voices serenade you as well. But for the mayor, this has been Jarrod Prugar. We thank you as always, and have a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year. And we'll talk to you again after the game on Saturday. Thanks, as always, for joining us on the Behind the Curtin podcast on the Nittany Sports Now Network.